a book about the Maura Murray disappearance. He's an investigative reporter who does a lot of this kind of investigation stuff. And he and Fred apparently have a bit of a beef.
Yeah, it sounds like they don't get along
They don't get along super well. And
well, frankly, if I were Fred and somebody were putting this kind of stuff out in the internet about me, I would be a little pissy about the whole thing, too.
Oh, yeah.
And Renner, while he seems to have good intentions, some of his methods of going about things, and this is my attempt to say this the best way possible, are not necessarily the best. He does some things that, and the way he writes it, the tone, that's the word I'm looking for. The tone and the perspective that he takes on things are very accusatory.
Well, part of it, right, is that he's an author and he's writing a book to sell. And that's fine. I don't think there's anything reprehensible about that. And I think that he's kind of become this go-to source for the Maura Murray disappearance because he is actively investigating it and also putting out the information that he's finding versus like the police who are, it's a cold case, but there it is an open investigation. It's hard to tell.
Well, but the thing is that when I read his stuff and I read the stance he takes on it, let's compare him to Ethan Brown, who we talked to for the Jefferson Davis 8 story. He was very removed. He had intimate interactions with people, but he kept removed. He kept his personal feelings out of it. He would say, this seemed weird to me, but he didn't seem to get so involved and wrapped up and take a personal stance on it.
Yeah.
Whereas Renner kind of doesn't seem to be able to hold that separation.
It's kind of like, I remember when I was investigating the Dorothy Arnold story, and I'd go out on the internet and I'd go to some of these boards where people were talking about it, and I'd watch these posts go by, and watch these
they
people,
would evolve.
And watch these people convince themselves, for example, in the Dorothy's case, that she was being horribly abused by her family. There's never been a shred of evidence to support that. But I watched these people's comments get more and more intense about poor Dorothy and the horror that her family was inflicting on her. It starts out as the family's kind of poking a little fun at her, and pretty soon they're just totally treating her like dirt. It's like, dudes, there's not a shred of evidence for any of this.
Yeah.
And this is what this reminds me of.
So, that's one of the good points to make is that it is the internet and it's hard to tell.
And another point, too, they searched his things and found photos of family women in porno mags. To the best of my knowledge, there was never any reason for the police to search the father's stuff. They went out, and he didn't even live in town. He lived a distance away, and he was never a person of interest as far as I know in this whole story.
Yeah, it's hard to tell. So again, it's hard to tell because since none of the police reports have really been released, it's hard to tell what they have and have not done, all of that sort of stuff. Apparently, also, there's a rumor floating around that Fred told his friends and Maura's friends not to talk to people who are writing a book about the disappearance, Jeremy Renner.
Well, it should be James Renner.
Mr. Renner.
Yeah, Jeremy Renner's an actor.
But also, he apparently told Maura's friends what to say to the police as well.
Now, the one thing that I do want to say, and this is kind of in defense of Fred, is I've read accounts from families that have had children disappear. And there are cases where people have realized what a political game they have to play with the news media and with people in general. And so they very methodically stage things and present things and say, we need to put this out here and we need to hold this back and we need to work through this process. And it's very calculated. And the problem is while that works in the beginning, this very calculated approach to keep the story alive, to keep it in people's minds, and to help spur the investigation, it also, in hindsight, after it all kind of washes out and people take another look at it, that behavior then really reflects poorly on you because there's a lot of inconsistencies between what you would expect a father's behavior of his daughter who has disappeared conflicting with the behavior of somebody who is taking it and just segmenting and compartmentalizing and putting it all in order for presentation.
Sure.
And so I can see both sides of the coin where he's trying to keep things going, but at the same time, he's knowing that if I just put it all out there, then the whole thing is done, and there's nothing to keep people looking into this story and keep public awareness of it.
Sure. Yeah. I think that's a fair point. Let's move on to Billy Rush.
The next cast member.
Yeah, he was Mara's boyfriend. Many accounts say that they were engaged. They were not. Apparently, in fact, the relationship was on the rocks, and Billy was cheating on Mara, and in fact, she was cheating on him with the assistant track coach of hers,
And this is
at least, and apparently, maybe even taking part in, quote, track team orgies, unquote, which I think is just dumb.
So, what's the source of all this stuff, anyway?
Well, there's actually a couple sources of this.
Really?
Yeah, it's kind of substantiated around, and in fact, the assistant track coach thing is in fact true.
Really?
But it's not clear that it was actually her cheating on Billy.
Because they
and this
they
is
had-
actually the
they
next
had
person
broken
we're
up,
going to talk
apparently.
about. Yeah.
Yeah.
But according to, apparently they broke up over a summer and had recently gotten back together. And also, apparently, Billy was maybe not such a nice guy. Again, these are all, it's just like, it's such a mishmash of like, he said, she said.
Well, and this so sounds like college girl catty rumors. Oh my God, you won't believe that slut. She was sleeping with the track coach, and then she was passed around with all the guys on the team. That is just so weird, and I've read that in accounts, and it's just really, come on.
So the interesting thing is actually all of that information comes from her ex-boyfriend / assistant track coach.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, now I didn't find that.
He's
Does he have a
actually the
website?
one. Yeah. Okay. So, well, let's just like
Did he post any pictures?
Let's have it. Let's have it.
jump right in. His name is Haas Baghdadi.
Haas.
What a great name,
And
Baghdadi.
he was the assistant track coach at UMass, apparently. And apparently they were seeing each other while she and Billy were broken up. He says that she was fairly promiscuous, that she was sleeping with him, but also many other members of the track team. But that didn't keep him from liking her.
Liking her as in...
Loving her. I think says loving her.
Okay.
I think he
I'm
says.
gonna hold back.
I mean, that's like at the very end. It's almost an afterthought. He talks about how much he loves her, and how great they were together, and how happy and strong she was. And then also, like, yeah, it's true that she was sleeping with other people, but like that's fine. Which I think is a fair thing to say. In college, it's okay to say.
How old was he? Do you know?
His early 20s, early.
So
20s.
he's kind of in the same demographic.
Same age, yeah.
Well, obviously he, it depends on the relationship. If you're really serious about somebody, then obviously that's not going to
Seems like
fly. But
perhaps they weren't.
I don't think he was serious about her. So
So Haas was interviewed by a few different people and claimed that he didn't actually even know that Mara had a father.
Well, of course she had a father.
You know, her father and mother were divorced.
Yeah.
So I'll throw that out there. He actually thought that perhaps the father was dead, that he had never heard Mara talk about her father before. Which is, again, another little, like, earworm. There's so many tiny little earworms.
Well, you know, but the thing about it is, it sounds to me like he and Mara got together for one thing and one thing only. I doubt that they spent a lot of time.
It sounds like from reports that they actually did spend some time together. There were many moments where they were just kind of hanging out, and she, in fact, confessed a couple of things to him. They had been spending the summer together, and she went to visit him over the summer, and then once school started again, she became kind of distant. Of course, this is all his account, but she became kind of distant and finally said, oh, actually, Billy and I got back together. And it sounded like Billy was perhaps being a little demanding, the whole, like, I need you here at this time, and you need to be only doing the things that I want you to do. And at one moment, she confessed to Haas that she hated her life at UMass and wished that she could, quote, just disappear. And Haas recalls reacting to finding out about her disappearance with a holy crap, maybe she did it.
Okay, well, I immediately, and I had only seen some of the kind of overview accounts of him, but I can't help but immediately get that bra feel from this. And by bra, I mean, hey, bra, what's going on?
Oh, you mean the bro?
The bro, yeah, that college bro who couldn't leave after he got out. You know, he didn't want to leave the fraternity life. And hey, bro, let's like go do this, and it's totally awesome. We're gonna hang out with these chicks. Like, there's that weird college guy mentality that there are men that are in their 30s that still can't get over that.
Oh yeah,
and I can just
I want to go back to college. Hey.
I really, just from the way this is put together and the things that he says, I get that. Well, I was a good dude and we had a thing, and so we just like hung out and she confided in me, and I don't know why I'm getting a surfer dude lilt in my voice, but it just, I really get I don't buy it.
Yeah, you
really.
feel,
I mean, that's just all it boils down to. I don't really buy this guy's stuff.
It's interesting. I kind of had that same like fame crashing vibe, right? That he like knew somebody who was famous for a kind of tragic reason, and he was just like, it's those same girls who like, some girl dies horribly in a car crash, and then like all of the girls at her school are like, we were best friends and I loved her so much we hung out in homeroom twice.
And then you find out on Facebook they ripped on her constantly and they hated her.
Yeah, so you're thinking old Haas here is just basically
Markopolis, thank you.
That's how I would have said it.
That was a good way to say it, yeah. So Kate was apparently friends with Mara. She and Fred and Mara had dinner a few days. She was at the dinner that they had on the 7th, it must have been.
That was a dinner they had at a brew pub, and afterwards she took her dad's car and then later on crashed it.
And Kate was actually also at the party that Mara was at right before she crashed her dad's car. Kate said that she had no knowledge about Mara's plans, which I think is fair. Apparently, of note, however, and I say apparently because I just think this is so sad that this keeps getting brought up, but Kate's father spent 5 years in jail for attempting to blow up his neighbor with a homemade bomb.
Stable behavior.
He only spent 5 years in jail, huh?
Yeah, he admitted to the crime and served 5 years. She claims that he was wrongfully imprisoned and that he was innocent and didn't do it.
I think Kate did it. I think Daddy took the rap.
So I mean, and I think
You
that
have
it's
no basis for that. Cut it out.
I
So?
think it's fair to say that like those are two pretty extreme things for one person to have, and for one person to have both of those things is like, you know, the odds of that are so million to one, right?
What do you mean?
To like
What's the-
have a close friend who disappears under highly mysterious circumstances. Oh, and also to have a father who tried to blow up his neighbor with a homemade bomb.
I know.
You know, I think,
So-
but I just can't see a connection. You know,
No,
I just
there's-
don't see
there's
a
no
connection there.
No.
But with everything else with this story, it's something to grab onto
Yeah.
and try and flesh it out and try and draw some Freudian conclusion to the whole thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So-
did Mara ever like ask to meet the daddy, and so she could quiz him about bomb making techniques or anything like that?
As far as I know, no.
Okay. All right.
Next is Jeff Williams, aka Police Chief Williams, or former Police Chief Williams. This was actually the guy who responded to that first crash where Mara ran into the guide rail
With Daddy's new car.
with Daddy's. I don't know if it was new, but with
I
his
heard
car.
it was new.
And he apparently has a bit of a record of messing up, according to the internet again, because that's the only place you can get information these days. He crashed his motorcycle into a truck. Then, later, after a bit of a high-speed chase, he was pulled over and charged with the driving while intoxicated, and was, of course, released from his duty as police chief. Also, apparently of note, the car he was driving belongs to a woman who is not his wife.
Oh, yeah. Scandal.
And Fred was actually the first person to call Mr. Williams' character into question. And he said that he wondered aloud to the media if perhaps Mr. Williams had not been lying about how intoxicated Mara was on the night of that initial crash.
So, is Fred saying that Mr. Williams
Could have prevented this whole thing.
Mr. Williams, well, he's the guy that responded after the guardrail crash. So, so did Williams say, "Oh, she was smashed, but I just let her go"?
No, Williams didn't. Remember, if you
He let her
remember,
go, right?
He actually drove her to her father's hotel room.
Exactly.
And you know, in my mind, I see a kind of a good guy cop situation here, where
exactly. Yeah, he's
if
being
she
helpful.
was drunk, he was like, "Listen, you're dumb, but I'm not going to charge you. Here, let's get you to your father." You know,
It sounds like he did her a favor.
Yeah, he was trying to be
so-
helpful. So I think it's silly that
So
Fred was.
that Fred Murray is calling his character into question. I don't get that.
Yeah, I agree
Yeah,
with that.
I mean,
The next cast member is the Mysterious Caller, which I've actually named the Mysterious Caller. There's no actual name attached to this person. Apparently, during the course of the investigation, a police officer discovered that somebody had called Mara's phone in the late afternoon of the 9th, which is the day that Mara disappeared. And the call came from within a 22-mile radius of the Londonderry, New Hampshire cell phone tower. There's apparently only one there.
how big is Londonderry?
It's quite small.
Like 10 people.
And this has caused a lot of people to speculate that she was planning to meet somebody in New Hampshire.
Do you know how far away that is from where her accident was?
It's like 100 miles, 116 miles south.
And that's by south?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Oh wait. Okay,
Yeah.
that doesn't make any friggin' sense.
Yeah, it's right on the border with New Hampshire and not Massachusetts, but Vermont.
And she went to school in Amherst, right?
Massachusetts.
Which is
It's almost
west
due north.
of where London was.
west of Londonderry,
Yeah.
southwest.
Yeah, so from
But-
Amherst to Woodsville is pretty north. It's just like a solid north path with a slight
Yeah, it's like 100 and
east
some odd
tilt or
miles
something.
north.
But yeah.
Okay.
Also, I guess of note, the Google Maps, if you're going to drive from Woodsville to Londonderry, you have to take 112 east.
except she was going the opposite direction. She was driving away from it. Okay, well, this is just weird.
Yeah, she was going west, right? On 112.
That's the assumption, but
northwest.
her car
Yeah.
her
Well,
car was faced east on the west, right?
Yeah,
It was-
I thought it was west,
But that's a
facing west on the
huge
eastbound.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
detour.
Yeah.
That's
That-
a giant detour to go
From
to that area.
Londonderry.
That
Yeah.
almost sounds like I got a new cell phone and I called my friend and they didn't answer, and that's why nobody knows what this phone number is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think.
Okay, I discount that right off.
You know, yeah.
Okay,
the
never
thing with-
mind.
Yeah, don't even worry about it because Londonderry is not that far from Amherst or where her parents lived. Or it's quite conceivable she knew somebody who lived in Londonderry who randomly called her.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
So the next character is maybe one of the creepiest.
Yeah, this guy
Yeah, I
is
saw
This
some-
is
a
creepy.
sicko.
I
Yeah.
gotta be honest with you. I couldn't watch the YouTube videos.
Oh, I did.
I did not. Because
I watched all three of them.
I knew that it was going to be a bad idea. So in 2012, the 8-year anniversary of Mara's disappearance, what I can only describe as mentally unstable man, posted some videos to YouTube taunting the family of the Murray family and also claiming to have information related to the case. In one of the videos, he's just laughing, which is terrifying. In one of the other videos, he shows a ski lift pass that was dated 2 days prior to Mara's disappearance from a ski resort that was very close to where her car was found. And that is, I guess, of note because who keeps ski passes for 8 years?
Well, and here's the thing: is I watched them, and the laughing video is just over a minute long. And I skimmed the thing. I paused. He started giggling or whatever it is that he's laughing, and I skimmed across it. And it is just him in a darkened room, and you can barely make out his features. And there's the computer monitor reflection in his glasses. You can't tell who this dude is.
And that's the one that's just titled Happy Anniversary, right?
Yeah, and at the very end
That's
it says Happy Anniversary.
Terrifying.
The one that's the ski pass is like 15 seconds long. And then he also posted another weird one, which I swear is taken out of a movie. And all it is rain coming down on a windshield with the windshield wipers with orchestral music in the background. And at first, it's actually kind of beautiful. Because you're listening to it, you're seeing the wipers, like, oh, this is really well made. And then I'm realizing it's for an actual movie, and it seems, because it's pretty well put together, somebody knew what they were doing. Wasn't obvious this dude did it, because what I laugh at is everything that this guy puts up on YouTube, it's always, whatever the name of it is, .mov. Which is a file type that hardly any system uses anymore. So he's using some antiquated software and doesn't know what he's doing. But it's just freaking weird.
His username of note,
Oh, yeah.
Mr. 112 Dirtbag.
112 being the road she was found on.
112
Or her
dirtbag.
car was found on.
Yeah, which is the significance of that is like her father, Mara's father, Fred, had said at one point that he believed that she had just been abducted by some dirtbag. That was literally his word. The word he used was dirtbag.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so apparently, I don't know. This guy is just some internet psycho that wants to torment the family.
Well,
Yeah,
there's
some of the videos that he released were just like line drawings. There was one
weird
of
stuff.
just like a girl with a black eye.
Yeah, huh?
It's
Well,
you
and-
can find information on this online. And
What-
it's
what I'm going to say about this is
Yeah.
there's been some forensic is the wrong word, but psychological interpretation. People who understand this mental standpoint have looked into it and they've realized that all this dude is doing is he knows that he can get a rise out of these people
Sure. Yeah, he can inflict a little pain. have a
and
little fun.
that he's got power over them and he's getting off on that power. That's all it is.
What I'm kind of surprised is that the authorities haven't done anything in terms of trying to track this guy down. It doesn't seem like it'd be that hard.
Because I
actually.
think that he's a troll and they just don't care. It's obvious that this guy is just a troll. He's just a weirdo.
Yeah,
Because, I mean, he cropped up years later.
yeah.
That just is some guy who found something that he knew he could fixate on and get his power jollies off of.
Yeah, I think that's what it is too. But if you're going to do your due diligence as a law enforcement officer,
And they may have.
you should find him.
They
and
may very well have.
visit his house with one of them there cadaver dogs, and see what you can find in the
True.
backyard.
yeah.
But I'm sure he's just some random sicko.
Yeah. So there's one more thing that I'd like to just note here, and this cropped up it just kind of flew onto my radar, I guess. When I was doing my research, there, as many of you know, I do some of my research on Reddit.
Well.
So there was a thread about this, and somebody posted this quote and said, "Oh, here's my source," and it was Wikipedia. But the Wikipedia article doesn't have this quote anymore on it.
So it's been removed
So
or moderated.
it's been removed. So I thought that was extra interesting while we're going down the yellow brick road.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just going to read the little excerpt that was on Wikipedia that, as far as I can tell, is no longer on Wikipedia. It says, "At some point, the New Hampshire State Police trooper had been at the scene. The nature and extent of his involvement has not been disclosed. The Murray family had reported that they have discovered that there was no radio communication between the state police officer and his station for approximately 2 hours after he arrived on the scene." I feel that's significant, and I feel it's interesting that it's not on Wikipedia anymore.
Well, what is it saying, though?
It's saying that after her crash, when she disappeared, a New Hampshire state trooper arrived on the scene.
Right, I understand that, but what is the implication or significance of the fact that he didn't
went dark.
get on the radio for 2 hours?
He went dark for 2 hours because he was busy murdering Maura Murray, is the implication.
I mean, it's one implication. I think again, it's that whole grasping at straws on this case that if we're going to say that Kate is a person of interest because her father made a homemade bomb and tried to blow up his neighbor, maybe.
The guy didn't report in. He went to the diner. He had a cigarette, a cup of coffee, 18 slices of pie, and then finally waddled back to his car and radioed in.
Well, that's possible.
That's
possible, but don't forget this too. Bear in mind the 2 hour gap probably never existed to begin with.
Yeah, and then, that's my big question mark, right? Is that I can't substantiate this at all, but I can say that okay, it's weird that maybe he wouldn't have been in contact for 2 hours after discovering that a young 21-year-old woman had wandered away from the scene of her car crash with her debit card and not much else. And it's significant also that perhaps that is no longer part of the Wikipedia Commons information. And again, I'm not saying that it actually is significant.
Well, I can see this being removed if there's no source.
Right.
Because you gotta back these things up with source.
Yeah.
And people just go into Wiki and do stuff all the time. And the moderators realize that there's no basis for it.
Yeah.
I mean, there's all kinds of cases of that.
And you maybe get contacted by somebody's lawyers. You say, hey, this is libel.
Calm down.
So
I guess I just feel that it's worth mentioning just for the sake of posterity.
I
added
prosperity
an R.
is a good
one.
one
One of my missing R's went.
She's making up for the missing letters.
Yeah, man.
All right. So, where are we at now?
So I guess we're kind of in the theories.
Oh, the theories.
Finally.
Okay,
Yeah.
UFOs. Are they going to be UFOs?
Obviously.
Oh, they're better.
So theory number one, UFO abduction. Although there's a lack of, lights and stuff like that.
No blue lights.
Actually, you know what? It's actually, again, kind of worth note. There are no actual alien UFO abduction theories in this, which is odd because there always are.
Yeah, and nobody saw any blue lights nearby.
No, and that, right? A little bit
well, that's
weird.
because last week's show was the black hole of all UFO things, and so we sucked them all up, so there's none left for this story.
All right, that's fair. So, not UFOs.
No. Oh, yeah, what besides UFOs, what else is there?
Well, so there's the theory that she ran away.
Yeah, she ran away.
And then I guess there's the sub-theories of, and it went horribly right, or it went horribly wrong. Right?
Okay.
Yeah.
So, flesh this out.
Well, I mean, she could have run away and meant to kind of fake her own death to, truly escape her life.
Yeah.
Right? That's a thing we know about.
Yeah.
But there's good evidence that she didn't do that.
Sure,
right?
there is.
Yeah, I mean, for one thing, she left without much money in her pocket, and if you're to believe her dad, and I have no reason to doubt her dad, they were looking for a new car for her, right? So, and again, I mean, people are casting aspersions on this guy, but I don't have any reason to believe that he was lying about that. So, therefore, if you're going to run away, and also let's not forget that she cleaned out her bank account, but she had checks on the way. Checks were in the mail. Right? So if you're going to disappear, aren't you going to wait for those checks to come so you have a little more cash to carry with you?
It could have been direct deposit.
Yeah.
Just as a,
But yeah, I mean, but you're basically going to wait for that stuff to happen. And you're probably going to go ahead and wait an extra week for the new car to materialize, because if you're going to go on the run and disappear, it's obviously better to do it with a newer, nicer, more reliable car.
Joe.
So that's why I completely discount the thought that she ran away.
Well, here my problem with this theory is that, and again, I am not saying anything bad about Mara, but she has proven to not have exercised the best decision making in a lot of scenarios.
True that.
And so I don't know that she would have necessarily said, well, I've got $280 in the bank right now, but if I wait 5 days, I'll have another $400 and I can take off. She may have just said, I got $280 in the bank. I'm out. I'm going to buy $40 in booze, and that's going to hold me. I just got to go.
Yeah, okay, that's fine too. But
Very short-sighted thinking.
Well, it is. But either she was incredibly determined and decided, even after she crashed her car, that she was going to go ahead and continue with her disappearance anyway. I still think I don't believe it. I think that at that point she would say, well, my disappearing act is kind of like just augured in, and it's a complete failure. So I'm going to go back home. I'm going to regroup, and I'm going to disappear a little bit, like another month down the line when I've got a new car. But the other thing about it is okay, her judgment was bad. She was thinking erratically, thinking I will disappear. Well, 10 years have gone by. She's had plenty of time to rethink her decision. She's probably been out there, if she's still alive, which I doubt. She's been out there eating a lot of you-know-what and not doing that well. So at some point, she's going to call home and say, I'm sorry. I thought I'd run away from home, and it hasn't worked out that well.
Well, but this was not a month ago. I was reading the story of there was a guy in that region who, I cannot remember what they called him, but he was the guy who would break into summer homes in the winter and steal all their food and their batteries, and just he was a phantom. And he would come in and he would just, jimmy open a window, and he'd steal all the foodstuffs and batteries and some clothes and disappear. Never did any damage, but he'd just steal it all. The guy lived in the woods for 20 friggin' years.
Yeah.
And he he did the same thing. He one day drove away, backed his car up and parked it on a service road and started hiking, and he just disappeared. And how he survived the cold in a tent is, it's a stroke of luck.
Yeah.
But he did it, and people do that. So,
again.
But he didn't say, well, I better wait till all my paychecks come through and I got money, because I'm going to go. No, he was like, I'm not going to use money. I'm just going to get out.
There's no reason to believe that Mara Murray was that kind of a hardcore person, though. I mean, she obviously had experience with hiking in the outdoors and stuff. But
that guy was no hardcore survivalist either before he left.
Again, when you look
it's just an example.
Yeah, it's a great example. But when you look at the probabilities here, the probability that she just disappeared and started a new life somewhere versus what else could have happened, like being abducted and murdered, well, I've got to say abduction and murder is a much, much stronger possibility.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the interesting bit, there's so many of those, and we're just totally omitting all of the sightings of Mara Murray that have been called in the last 10 years, mostly because please go online and look at pictures of her. She's one of the most innocuous white women ever. I mean, she's got brown hair, she looks like a totally normal, attractive, but not so attractive that you would notice her, blending in white woman. And I have so many friends who kind of do that whole well, I'm going to go to Alaska and work in a fish processing plant for a couple of years. And do you think that they're super litigious about actually, having a work visa and proving who you are and running a background check and all that stuff? No, I mean, they may pay you in cash and that's fine because it's cheaper for them in the long run. It's not to say that that's what she did, but it would be possible for her to have escaped someplace taken a job under the table for a little while until she could earn the money to make it out of the country and just go.
Yeah.
Well, and here's one of the things, I don't know if we've talked about this. When you pull up Woodsville, where she crashed her car,
Yeah.
it is less than 100 miles away from the Canadian border.
So you think the Canadians did it?
I don't think the Canadians
I think they did it. Damn them.
But
They stuffed her full of Tim Hortons.
Yeah.
and maple syrup and said, okay, eh? No, I think that it's one of those things where if she's running from I don't know what she thought was so terrible that she had to run from, and you look at where Amherst is and you look where she crashed, she drove 2.5 hours north. And she was about an hour or so away from crossing the border and going to a new life. And what do people do when? And you mentioned this. What do people do when they want to make a new life? They go to another country and they just start over with basics.
And I have no idea. This is 2004, of course. This is after 9/11. So there would be a record of a border crossing. I don't know if anybody, on either the U.S. or the Canadian side of the border actually, kept track of who crossed the border, but you would think the police would probably have checked on something like that. Maybe they didn't.
I mean,
the police, the authorities have an amazing ability to be like super authoritarian and everything like that, and massively incompetent at the same time.
Well, I think that the thing is that we keep an incredible record of everybody who comes into our country.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that we keep a great record of who leaves our country.
No, but the Canadians would have a record of who came in.
Maybe.
I gotta be honest, I've driven through the Canadian border and waved my passport and kept going.
Yeah, I don't know.
And they didn't scan me every stinking time I came through the border.
Yeah, again, I think what happened after 9/11 though is there's basically the U.S. because so many of the 9/11 terrorists infiltrated our country through the Canadian border. The U.S., we started clamping down on that, and in retaliation, the Canadians started clamping down on us and started putting much stricter rules about who could come in and everything like that. So I would imagine it by that point in time that they were probably actually scanning all the passports of people coming in.
Okay, but here's the problem with that is that you're presuming that she was checked. Mm-hmm. Okay, well, let's just say...
Maybe not. Maybe she was waved through.
For giggles, let's just say that Mara ran. She ran north on the road, or she got a ride in one of those cars that went by. And she gets in a car